There are fears this morning we could have lost a generation of children, their development badly affected by 2 years of unstable education due to the pandemic.
It's an awful thought, that. The National Children's Commissioner wants to see a plan at federal level, and she wants to see it now. Commissioner Anne Holmes joins us now from Sydney. Commissioner, thank you for your time this morning. When you read that out, a lost generation of children, especially when you have kids, it's like, how does that happen?
Yeah, well, how does it happen? It happens if we're not putting children front and centre in terms of our policy considerations. So we're into year 2 of the pandemic. It's time to start talking about kids.
And what sort of damage are we seeing being done for kids? And I guess it's not just from a purely educational point of view, it's also to do with their social and emotional development.
Well, but that's all part of the same story. You see, we can't really learn effectively unless we've got the foundational social and emotional skills. And that's what young children are learning when they go to school. They're learning about making friends. They're learning about how to fit into the school environment. They're learning a love of school, a reason to want to go to school. And they're going to need that if they're going to get through to year 12, right? So these young kids are missing out on the basics, especially the one, not everyone, it's the ones that are not getting the support at home. There are particular concerns about kids with disabilities, kids in families with complex issues, kids whose parents don't speak English, for heaven's sake. I mean, they're not going to get the learning support that they need. And we're going to need, I think, to give them a bit of extra help when they go back to school. So
Year 12 students are being prioritised at the moment, given HSC's coming up. We understand all of that. But they are very much a product of their schooling life. And I don't think one of the great things to come out of this whole pandemic is that I think kids of all ages have rediscovered their love of school. But how do you know if your child is falling behind when they're at home?
Well, actually, it's quite hard for parents to know that, right? One of the things I'm hearing from a lot of parents is some kids have become quite disengaged. They're not able to, they're not wanting to do the Zoom calls anymore with their teachers. You know, it's that disengagement that worries me. And yes, it's not all about the year 12s. If you've got to year 12 this year, then you're a pretty good self-starter, I reckon. I worry about the older kids who perhaps were already struggling a bit, who perhaps were at risk of being disengaged. They may not go back now.
So, look, I mean, I think everyone wants to see kids back in the classroom. Everyone, parents, politicians, teachers. But what do you do when we are in the middle of a pandemic? We're now seeing an outbreak which is impacting children more than it has previously. So how do you get kids back into the classroom and ensure it's safe?
Well, you need a plan. And of course, we're all concerned to hear that kids are getting sick, but we need to listen to the health advice. My understanding at this stage is the health advice is the kids are not getting as sick as older people are. But we do need a plan to make the school as safe an environment as possible. But we also need to consider the well-being of kids in a holistic way. So it isn't just about will they get COVID or not. It is about what are the other costs? What are we sacrificing by keeping them at home so adults aren't getting sick?
So whatever happens, it has to happen now because hopefully this time next year we'll be out and about and the kids will be back to normal. But how are we going to stop these problems happening now? How do we make sure they're prepared now? What needs to happen? What's your plan for our kids now?
Well, Karl, it's not entirely sure that we won't have similar disruption next year. I'm worried that this may drift into a third year. We need to start planning now. And by that I mean let's talk about the kids. Let's talk about what they need, not just from a health perspective, but a social, emotional, developmental perspective, a learning perspective. Let's get the people in the room that understand these things and let's build a plan.
That's a good idea.
And we had so many parents writing to us with questions, and I hope you don't mind if we put a couple of them to you. This one is from Leanne McGee, who lives in Aberglass in New South Wales. She's concerned about her daughter with autism and intellectual disability. What's your advice to parents in that position?
Well, look, I think all that parents can do is really kind of try and relax a bit right now, because there's not... You know, I am also hearing there's tensions developing between parents and kids because parents are so worried about their kids' schooling. I think really we should just focus on making sure the relationship is a positive one. Play with your kids, give them lots of experiences that may not be sitting on the screen. You know, use what you can do, but it is these kids, like this particular viewer, that I'm worried about their kids, because you know we don't hear about them. It's not all about the year 12s. You know, it is about these kids for whom the school environment is so rich, is so important to their development, and it cannot be replicated at home.
And the other thing is, I mean, it just gives us so much love for teachers again, doesn't it? Restores our love for them. Any parent going through teaching at home, when you suddenly become a teacher of schoolwork at home, it upsets the balance of parenthood as well. It's tough. Another message from Amanda Fraga, who says, what about the most important skills we learned as children? Real-life social skills, how to play nicely, treat others with respect, make new friends and act in a way that is socially acceptable. Is this all part of it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Amanda's absolutely correct about that. We don't often hear about that when we talk about the reading and the writing and all of those important academic things. But in order to be able to engage in academic learning, you've got to have these social skills. You've got to be able to fit in at school. You've got to make friends. I can't emphasise that enough. You know, for the littlies, you know, we want them to be able to engage in a positive way in the school environment, and every day matters in the life of a child, that we can't make them wait and wait and wait until we're ready to think about kids. We need to think about them today.
I saw those results of the NAPLAN 2 and front pages of papers today across Australia. We're falling behind in reading. That, you know, over the last 12 months, that's a real worry. So there's lots of work to do. Appreciate you being on the right path. Hopefully we can get everyone around for a meeting soon.
Thanks, Sam.
Important enough.
Absolutely.